Welcome to this explainer. Let's just be real right off the bat. When it comes to taxpayer dollars and keeping our community safe, few things matter quite as much as maintaining secure, completely stable correctional facilities. So today we're unpacking a really critical workforce issue that's hitting jail and prison systems hard: correctional officer retention. We're going to zoom in specifically on New Jersey to understand exactly why keeping these officers on the job requires a pretty massive shift in thinking. We've got to move away from just scrambling to fill empty posts every week and instead really focus on building sustainable long-term careers.
Right, so look at this quote. Turnover is not just a human resources problem. That really hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? In a correctional setting, an empty post isn't just an empty desk. It compromises safety, it absolutely tanks morale, it completely breaks training continuity, and it throws the stability of daily operations right out the window. The New Jersey Department of Corrections has actually been super clear about this recently, emphasizing that investing in a well-trained, healthy, and diverse workforce isn't just some nice-to-have HR initiative, it is a core operational priority. And just to put the scale of this into perspective, New Jersey runs a massively complex system. The recruitment pages literally describe correctional police officers as being part of the largest law enforcement agency in the entire state. So, because of that massive scale, a single vacancy causes this huge ripple effect. It hits different shifts, it impacts the housing units, and it disrupts specialized assignments. And when staffing gets tight, who do you think takes the hit? It's the experienced officers who are forced to absorb all that extra overtime and the immense, just bone-deep exhaustion that comes with it. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the high cost of turnover, look at why retention is about more than just a paycheck, talk about surviving that critical first year, dive into wellness, workload, and culture, and finally, lay out some actionable steps for New Jersey.
Okay, starting off with part one, the high cost of turnover and the ripple effect of a vacancy.
So understaffing basically creates this really dangerous self-feeding cycle. Think about it. When a facility is short-staffed, safety is immediately compromised, which obviously hurts morale. But from a purely practical standpoint, it leads to skyrocketing overtime costs. And here's the real trap, the snowball effect, if you will. When leadership doesn't respond quickly to these staffing shortages, those veteran officers are forced to absorb that extra stress and those extra hours. And that exhaustion, well, it actually just accelerates even further turnover. It drains the absolute most vital asset any facility has, which is its experienced staff.
Moving right along to part two, why keeping staff is about way more than just a paycheck. It's about baseline versus holistic retention.
Now, New Jersey actually already has a solid baseline in place. We're talking overtime eligibility, uniform allowances, annual salary step increases, pension membership, all that good stuff. And look, you simply cannot recruit without that baseline. But, and this is a big but, you absolutely cannot retain officers long-term without the holistic support on the other side of the equation. To keep people, they need predictable schedules. They need strong, respectful supervision. They need clear paths to advance and a culture that truly values their professionalism. Basically, the pay gets them in the door, but the holistic support, that's what keeps them from walking right back out.
Speaking of getting folks in the door, let's talk about the year 2025. This is a great example of improving that baseline. Specifically, New Jersey's pay transparency law takes effect on June 1st, 2025. And in a state with a notoriously high cost of living, transparent compensation is just incredibly important. By laying out clear salary and benefits information right there in the job postings, candidates can make super informed decisions from day one. It's a proactive step, and it really helps reduce that early turnover that's so often caused by mismatched expectations about what the job actually pays.
And this brings us to a massive paradigm shift from the source text. Retention isn't just a laundry list of HR benefits, it's the total employment experience. Officers are so much more likely to stick around when they can actually see a real future in the job, when the pay lets them adequately support their families, and, honestly, most importantly, when they have the time and the actual resources to recover from the intense physical and emotional demands of correctional work.
All right, let's shift to part three, surviving the first year and building that foundation.
12. That is the magic number here. The text highlights that the first 12 months on the job are literally the make or break period. But why is that? Well, new officers frequently leave if the training they receive feels way too abstract, or if their supervision is wildly inconsistent, or simply if the sheer weight of the workplace culture just feels completely overwhelming to navigate all by themselves.
So, what's the fix? The ideal pathway for those first 12 months definitely requires more than just sitting in an academy.
Now, the New Jersey Department of Corrections already highlights their academy training, which is a fantastic first step. But if you want to prevent new recruits from washing out early, that academy training has to be paired up with structured field mentoring. You need regular, meaningful check-ins to gauge how the recruit is actually adapting to the environment. And you absolutely need realistic job previews so there are zero surprises. This takes all that abstract advice and turns it into a concrete framework that actually supports the officer the second they hit the floor.
Which leads us perfectly into Part 4, Wellness, Workload, and Culture, essentially supporting the actual person behind the badge.
So, New Jersey actually has some pretty powerful tools already in place. The real trick is connecting those tools directly to retention. For education and growth, NJDOC offers tuition reimbursement and college credit opportunities. This is huge because it rewards long-term service and completely prevents that dreaded feeling of being stuck in a dead-end job. For daily operations, it's sometimes the simple things: shift overlaps, expanded email access, newsletters. These dramatically reduce day-to-day operational friction and confusion. And for mental health, they've got the Employee Advisory Service, which gives officers and their families access to really crucial confidential counseling.
But here is the catch. Just having these tools written down in some handbook is not enough. Correctional work involves immense daily stress, serious trauma exposure, and severe burnout. Leadership has got to actively normalize the use of these mental health resources so they aren't just viewed as this absolute last resort. Because when agencies actively encourage the early use of these services, officers don't have to suffer in silence, and facilities are way more likely to keep their experienced, veteran staff healthy and, actually on the job.
Finally, let's wrap up with Part 5, Actionable Steps for New Jersey, the Blueprint for Retention.
So what does this all mean when we put it together? It gives us this comprehensive 7-step blueprint for state policymakers and facility leaders. By implementing all these strategies together, agencies can truly transform retention. And remember, New Jersey already has the tools. The real challenge now is just using them consistently. A benefits package is really only strong when officers understand it, when they trust it, and when they can actually access it. If you combine competitive compensation with better scheduling to cut down on that forced overtime, publicly recognize the good work people are doing, and build really clear internal career ladders, well then leadership can take what has traditionally been a high burnout job and turn it into a true, deeply respected profession.
I really want to leave you with this final, kind of provocative thought. Correctional officer retention in New Jersey is about so much more than just hiring enough bodies to hit a quota. A stable prison environment completely relies on reducing those crippling overtime costs and maintaining the stability of daily operations. So we really have to ask ourselves, are we going to stay stuck in this revolving door cycle of just trying to fill empty posts? Or are we finally ready to invest the actual time, resources, and culture required to build a workplace where officers can stay, grow, and finish their public service careers with real dignity? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this gives you a fresh perspective on what's happening on the front lines of our correctional system.